I am your host, Fat Dag. You're listening to WhysAdvice. My weight loss journey failed when I focused on how. It wasn't until I switched my focus to why that I truly transformed myself. Join the show on the web at fatdag.com and check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all at WhysAdvice. Send in your comments, your questions, your celebrations. I'll include them as part of the show. But before we dive in, remember, when you're out of points, stop eating points. Hey, I'm honored to be your wingman as we walk through this journey together because I believe in you. Well, hello there. Welcome to episode 291 of WhysAdvice. Just 9 episodes shy of the big number 300. Thank you guys for being here. A little over 3 years we've been in this. 3.5 million downloads. That means every single day, a few thousand people have relied on this as part of their journey to kind of get them to where they want to go. So got a lot to cover in the opening of this show before we dive into 4 amazing emails. And first I want to say welcome to the live streaming audience is tremendous today. There's looks like about 130 people joining us live. And so the cool thing about that is as you're displaced, as you're working from home, there's a lot going on and you've chosen to take time out of your already hectic, crazy, busy schedule to join us on live on Facebook. So thanks for doing that. For those of you catching the replay, you're just as equally busy. So thank you certainly for being a part of this. We're going to get this done. We have a bunch of communities to kind of keep you engaged as you're going on. We have a Slack community. Anyone who writes into the show, Heather and Lisa produce the amazing content, and then they send you an invite to what's called a Slack group. Gives you an opportunity to just kind of interact with other people who've written into the show to give you a little bit more, more of that community feel. We also do for the patron crowd, we do a Discord chat every Monday at 3 o'clock, and we're starting to increase those opportunities to chat every night. We kind of just check in, how are you doing, see what's going on, but that's a much smaller community only for the Patreon community. So go to fatdag.com, click on Become a Patron. You can certainly join us there. And then last but not least, in the Wise Wingman Facebook group, we're certainly in there all the time, just interacting to make sure that you are finding the support that you need along this journey. So what do you think, Janine? What did we miss so far in the opening?
I think the biggest thing people are commenting already is that they're so thankful for this because of their workshops this week. Workshops are being canceled, going online. Big change for a lot of people. Very excited about the Zoom calls. Lots of people begging you to do a few more of those this week. Yep.
So we'll try and do a Zoom call. We did a few already. By the time you hear the replay, it might be done, but I'm trying to get you a chance to practice Zoom calls. But yeah, so you're right. So right now, workshops across the country, they're temporarily being converted to virtual. But it begs the question, that thing I always ask about is, the question, when you started this journey, most of us say, hey, this is it. This is my time. I'm all in. I'm doing it this time. And when you made that declaration, when you made that commitment, you may not have thought that, and the world will shut down around me, right? So I don't think any of us could have ever predicted that we were headed in this spot, but it doesn't change the declaration that you said, hey, I am all in. If you're truly all in, then now is the time to truly dig in and say, okay, I'm all in. I don't need to be perfect. I just need to continue to stay engaged. And that's why it's so important to check in with the Slack community, with the Wise Wingman group, check in on Connect, wherever you can connect to somebody else in this journey, because you need to stay engaged, because so much else is going on that having that engagement is really where the big thing comes from.
And I think right now the kind of mood in our country is a little more somber. People are focusing on the what ifs and the oh no's and what if this happens. And I think this would be a really good time to break out that book over there that might actually creak when you open it, because I feel like it's been a while since we've opened that book of awesome, and force our listeners to focus on the good things that are happening. We could so easily get inundated with all of the negative news coming at us right now, but I think it would be a great time to reignite the book of awesome and have some people send us their celebrations.
That's a great idea. So one of the things that we like to do is make sure you celebrate all the things that are going right in your life. And so right now, even with all the crazy stuff going on, there's plenty that's going right. We're still in this amazing studio. The studio has been completely sanitized. We'll talk about that in a bit. But we're reconnecting as a family. We're getting a lot of things done around the house that needed to get done. So there are things that you can celebrate. And what we want you to do is make sure you celebrate with us all the time. Hashtag Book of Awesome. If you're on Twitter, make a post. Say, here's what I'm thankful for. Here's what's going right in my life. Here's what's going right. Hashtag Book of Awesome. put it on Instagram, hashtag Book of Awesome, put them on Connect, hashtag Book of Awesome, and I will start finding those posts. And what I'll do is I'll transcribe your words from digital into the Book of Awesome. I'll write it down for you, and then I will, depending on the medium, I'll snap a picture and then let you see that you have officially been entered or re-entered into the Book of Awesome. So great idea bringing that back up. It's certainly something that's going to help us in this journey. Anything from the web before we get going?
Becky said she's just enjoying this little bit of normalcy right now in this very weird world, which just sort of made me smile. She thinks we're normal.
Yeah, it must be this side of the room that's normal.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah. So, no, you know, in some ways, you know, and certainly not to put it in that complete perspective, but in some ways, it kind of feels like that week between Christmas and New Year's, right? With the exception of everything's open, but you know, after Christmas dinner, nothing's open, so you have to kind of find something to do. And Thanksgiving dinner, same time, and so we're in that stage where, like, you know, for 1 or 2 days, we're all adjusting, and then as this becomes the new normal, and you can start relying on you saying, okay, now I have to be intentional with my choices. You know, and we joked about it earlier, I lost my veto power. And what I mean by that is I used to come home from work, or Janine would come home from work, and I say, what's for dinner? And she'd say, well, I took out chicken. And I said, no, let's go out. And so I could veto chicken. But we're at the point now where I don't have veto authority over chicken anymore. Whatever she says is for dinner is because that's probably all we have, and we got to just make it work. And so what's happening is now we're being a lot more intentional with our choices, and you're not just being able to live off those habits. So the great opportunity you have right now is to reinvent yourself. If you're used to coming home and ordering a pizza or going out to eat or just getting in those ruts, right now you have to be very intentional with your activity. You have to be very intentional with your eating. And so it's a great opportunity for you to completely reinvent yourself without really having to sacrifice too much, because that has already happened for you. You're doing that regardless. So now's the time to completely change your life. Use this to your advantage. You know, I put a post on the internet the other day saying, before, as you try and go from one lifestyle to another, it was very similar to trying to drive down the road and change a tire as you were driving, right? Because you have one life going 1,000,000 miles an hour, and you need to all of a sudden change the tire, and you have to do it while the car is moving. So what's happening now is that now we're able to put the car in park and pull over and say, okay, wait a minute. I have to think about this, and I really get deliberate on my journey. And so you're in that mode right now. You have all the tools available to completely change your life, take advantage of them, and roll.
Absolutely. Everybody's dealing with a lot of change right now, and I think the best thing we can do is take care of each other, take care of your neighbors, check in on people in your neighborhood, your friends, from a distance, of course.
Yep.
And just try and spread a little bit of happiness in an otherwise totally chaotic time.
Yep, absolutely. So, you know, we always check in on our friends, and certainly that's how we get into this beautiful studio. Our friends here at Edge Media Studios, they do a great job of hosting us. And so I had to tell you, when just before we came here, I was hesitant to email in to say, are we still doing a show? Because I didn't want them to be able to cancel. So I waited for them to ask me if I was still coming, and I was like, oh, good. And we showed up today, and the studio was completely sanitized, headphones wiped down, microphones wiped down, everything wiped down. And we will leave here, wash our hands on the way out, and make sure that the next studio coming in, next team coming in has the exact same environment. So I want to bring Aaron in, and Jacob, roll the clip, and let's go ahead and talk about how awesome Edge Media Studios is. I love this shot. Aaron, how are you, my friend? Aaron?
I'm there.
Jacob? There we go.
All right, doing quite well, sir. Thanks for coming in.
Oh, it's an honor to be here, always. So, hey, real quick, before we dive into all the stuff you do here, how important is podcasting and internet communication going to be, broadcasting like this, in this new world that we're building?
Oh, it's very, very important. And we're seeing a heck of a lot of changes right now, a lot of new consumption of a lot of different audio that we're pushing forth right now. So
Right.
A lot of e-learning is going on, a lot of virtual connections, as you're already talking about. But I think we're really finding how well the infrastructure is laid out to be able to connect, especially with this type of crisis going on.
Yep. And you built this just for you didn't know this was coming, but this kind of scenario, maybe not this exact one, but our scenario where everyone said, hey, we're consuming digital content is why you built this place, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, we built this to be able to service Indianapolis as well as international business when it comes down to podcast production. So it's not only just video broadcast that you're doing right here, but we can absolutely do any type of podcast production and broadcast as well. So we can do all of this remotely as well. In fact, we're going to be working with a couple teams in Europe actually right now to be able to help them get the blast out and get the broadcast out.
Fantastic. So, folks, if you're listening, if your business, if your school, your whatever, if you need the ability to get mass media out quickly, reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with Aaron. He'll get you hooked up, and they have the bandwidth to hook you up. And Aaron, thanks again for having us.
You got some bandwidth over there now, so
yeah.
You may actually park over your place.
We'll bring the whole studio to my house, and we'll go live from there. So, very good. So, thanks again for having us and keeping us here. So,
stay well.
You bet. Out of Odenton, Maryland, the first email comes in from Nancy. Nancy writes in, she says, "Hey, dear Mike, it was the summer vacation of a lifetime, driving across the country with my grandparents, and I was just 9 years old. It was an incredible journey, seeing all the sights, tasting all the food, and visiting all the family and friends that my grandparents knew along the way. Looking back, I realized this is where food became my life. I ate when I was happy. I ate when I was alone. I ate when I was sad. I ate when I was bored, and I ate because I missed my family. Food never disappoints me. When I returned home, I will never forget the look on my mother's face. She didn't recognize me. I was 9 and about 20 pounds heavier. Excuses, I have a lot of them, and I have to find a way to stop making excuses to stay on track and stay on plan. It seems every time I get to a 50-pound loss, something clicks in my head, and it's like hitting the wall. It's really a hard thing to explain, but please help me stop making excuses and get this done. I love this group, and I appreciate all that you do, Mike. Your courage is amazing, Nancy." Nancy, one of the things, thanks for writing in, first of all. And so I get where you come from in the opening of your email, and you talked about the vacation of a lifetime. And I really want you to make sure that you understand that moment, regardless of the food side of it, it's a memory that you're never ever going to forget in a good way as well. I would like to disassociate the food side of it because I want you to cherish the memories that you did make. That's number one, and that's important, and that's never going to go away. So when it comes to the other side of it, when you say looking back, I realize that's where food became an issue in your life. We have a tendency in our lives, and we build our lifestyle, and so we build them as we react. And so the analogy I use often is when I was a young boy, same thing. We'd play baseball, and if we won the game, the coach took us to Dairy Joy of some sort, right? And we would get an ice cream. And so I imagine if I ever became a Major League Baseball player and I won the World Series, if they didn't give me ice cream, I would be disappointed because I would question if I really won. So we start building those habits, and we say, okay, if you win a game, you get to go out for ice cream. So we make those associations. So very similar to how your life is going through is that, you eat when you're bored, you eat when you're sad, you eat when you miss your family. Because what happens when the event comes up, and then you answer that event with food, you're building that relationship between the two. So here's where I would say you have the opportunity right now. This is, as we talked in the opening of the show, we're in unprecedented times. The food availability, even though there's plenty of availability, but it's different than it has been in years past. And you have to be a little more deliberate and more conscious about it. You have the amazing opportunity right now to completely reinvent yourself. As scenarios happen to you, you can react differently. You can react by going for a walk. You can react by reading a book. You can react by posting in the Book of Awesome or whatever you need to do. You have an opportunity to completely reinvent yourself. I'm not so concerned about the excuse side of it. Congratulations on making it to a 50-pound weight loss. Regardless is that you've proven the hard work necessary and needed to get this done, you're clearly capable of. No excuses. You are clearly capable of doing whatever hard work and dedication and discipline and focus that you need to put in to get there. So when you get to that milestone, then what's happening is suddenly that new life is coming at, and you're trying to bring the old life and the old habits back in as a celebratory answer. And that's not the answer we want to go for. So what I want you to do is I want you to give yourself some grace. I want you to kind of give yourself a pat on the back for one, having an amazing family that's worthy of hanging out with. And for two, saying, hey, I've done this before. I can do whatever it takes again. It's just going to take a little bit of effort of me diving in and say, I'm doing this because this is the priority. There will always be an opportunity to balance this priority with other priorities in your life, but make this the priority. Continue to make this high on the list of things that you want to accomplish. Juggle them as they come at you, but never lose sight that you've set this as a priority. You're capable of getting it done, and I have no doubt in my mind you will, because I believe in you. I totally believe, every fiber in my being, I believe you can do whatever you want to do, and I think now is the most important time and probably the easiest time to go ahead and accomplish it. So what'd you pick up out of that, Janine?
Well, Nancy's here. She's listening live. She said it was very emotional, and she thanks you for reading her email. Nancy, thank you for writing in and sharing your story. That's not an easy thing to do, to put yourself out there like that and share your highs and your lows, but everybody is benefiting from your experience and sharing your story. The biggest thing I would say is don't stop until you're proud. Keep working, keep doing what you know you can do. Take one step today. Tomorrow, take 2 steps towards your goal. The next day, take 3 steps. And if you backslide a little bit, that's okay. Keep going. Start over again the next day.
Yeah, the backslide is one of those things that it's just part of the journey. And I've said before, and I have joked, is like the intent is when you want to get well and you want to start losing weight, it's impossible for us to get back to our birth weight. It's just not going to happen. So it's somewhere along the way, and it's also, let me back up, it's also impossible for you to every single week for the rest of your life lose weight. Because if you did, you would get back to 0, and that's not the goal. So if we know 2 things, if we know we're not going to get back to our birth weight, which means we can't lose weight every single week, there are going to have to be weeks where the scale goes the opposite direction. That's just how math works. And so taking that as part of the journey is now going, okay, giving yourself permission to allow that to happen, but not getting that permission to say, okay, well, because it's happening, I'm done, I've given up, and I'm unfocusing and I'm reprioritizing.
And I think it always helps, like you always say, to re-examine your goals and your why. I mean, is your goal just to look better or to feel better? Because you could hit that 30 pounds before you've reached goal. Or is your goal to fit into a certain thing or to lose a certain amount of weight? I think sometimes if your goals aren't very specific and very clear, you can think that you've reached your goal because, I look better today, I feel better today, when that may not really be your goal, and it kind of gets you into this mode of being a little bit more passive about working towards your goal.
Yep. So it's important to write down what the goal is. And so when we ask the 5 questions, one of them is what are your expectations on this? What are you trying to accomplish? And we're going to get into that in one of the next emails that someone wrote in and answered the 5 questions. But the very first one is, what are your expectations? And so Nancy, just knowing right now what your expectation is on this journey, that'll help you stay motivated towards it and do whatever it takes to go ahead and get it done. The one of the things that, it's important that you guys are joining us live. I appreciate that, and I love when I make a post and you guys share it with your communities, and as long as it's worthy of being shared. So when you do share it, I thank you for that. So what I'm trying to do is trying to find the platform that's going to resonate the most with you. So I ask you is go to Facebook, go to Twitter, go to Instagram, go to YouTube, and like, comment, share, and subscribe, so that no matter who's on this journey looking for it, you have the opportunity to reach them and say, hey, we can help you. We found a community of people who are just like you. You don't have to walk alone. So it's facebook.com/WhysAdvice. It's Instagram.com/WhysAdvice. On Twitter, I'm FatDag and WhysAdvice. So there's plenty of opportunity. So I beg of you, I'm going to check the numbers when I get off today. I'm like, how many people found this, and I want you to, help me out with that, and let's get this thing growing. Especially now that everyone's working from home, I think the inspiration, motivation is needed along the way. So thanks for doing that. This next email comes in anonymously. It says, Mike, could you please keep my name anonymous, as my answers to the 5 questions, they're very personal. I hope my answers can help someone else. Here are my answers to the 5 questions. Number 1, what are you expecting to get out of this journey? I'm expecting better health. Even with multiple chronic illnesses, I know that following the plan will help me become the best that I can be. Number 2, do you believe that you can do it? Yes, I got to goal 20 years ago, and I know I can do it again. Number 3, what is in your way? Well, in tough times, I turn to food for comfort. Number 4, what's the hardest thing you've ever had to do in your life, and will this be easier or harder than that? The hardest thing I've ever had to have done is infertility treatment. My infertility was partly weight-related, and I believe I had a condition called polycystic ovarian syndrome. In 1992, I lost 92 pounds, became pregnant, in 1993 and had my first miscarriage. In 1997, I went back to WW, and my why was to have a baby. I lost steadily, and in October of that year, I had to have surgery to remove a large ovarian-era cyst. During the surgery, they had to remove part of my left fallopian tube. While I was recovering from surgery, WW introduced the original points program. I didn't like it at first, but it grew on me. I was allowed to try and conceive in January 1998, and I became pregnant then, but I miscarried a week after finding out I was pregnant. I made goal in June of 1998, and I started infertility treatment around the same time. I stayed at goal for over a year, and then two things happened. My grandmother died, and I found out I needed in vitro fertilization. My infertility journey was difficult and complicated, but I have a beautiful daughter as a result. She is now 17 and trying to decide on colleges. I had tremendous focus during my infertility journey, and I am working to get that focus back. I think this journey will be easier. Last question, number 5. Who is responsible for your success? I am. Mike, thank you for all that you do for our WW community, Anonymous. So I love when an email comes in anonymously because, usually at that point you pour your heart out and you let us know exactly what's going on. And that's the best way that we can support you. That's the best way that we can walk with you, is if we truly know what's going on. And so this email, as I read it, it's one of those things that we don't wish this on people. And so when you get to the point where you said, I really want to have that same level of focus back, you're capable of doing it. And I appreciate that you walked through the 5 questions, and I want to go through each one specifically with you. And it says, what are you expecting out of the journey? And better health. And that really is what we're after. I ask you to, what your expectations are, because really what that is, that's the framework of you starting to build a list of goals. And so if you know what your expectations are, then you can set that and say, okay, now how do I accomplish that? So if my expectation is better health, well, that's not something you can just instantly overnight do. That's something you have to make a plan to do. You have to make incremental steps towards that. So setting that expectation early, writing it down and digging in, gets your brain thinking about, okay, what is it that I'm truly trying to accomplish? The second question I always ask is, do you believe you can do it? And you said, yes, I know I can. I did this 20 years ago. So congrats on that. And the reason I ask that question is if you believe you can do it or not, is more often than not, when I ask someone, do you believe you can do this? Do you believe what you're trying to do is possible? Anything short of a jump up and down answer yes is certainly, I'm not sure, and I don't know. And so I take that as a no initially. That's perfectly fine. It's at that point where I step in and say, I believe in you. It's at that point where the Wise Wingman community steps up and says, we believe in you. And so you can rely on our knowledge of the program, our knowledge of life to say, hey, what you're trying to do is possible. We believe in you. Let us carry you for a little bit until you start seeing the incremental success and the progress as you started working the plan and you started seeing, oh, I can do this. But you're coming in even harder. You say, no, I've done this 20 years ago. I certainly know I can do it again. Certainly a lot's changed in 20 years, but the internal who you are has not. So you absolutely can do this, and I continue to believe that absolutely you can. Detailing what's in your way and knowing that one, that, hey, when times get tough, I turn to comfort food. I think that sums up many of us. And so one of the things I know is that even in my own journey is that doesn't solve it. There are so many things that I wish we could do, and very rarely does the answer say, well, go eat and everything will be better. And so we have to know that up front, is even though in the moment it feels comfortable, it's really a learned response that we kind of picked up on our own. We said, hey, at one point I wasn't feeling so well. I ate and I kind of felt better, or I thought I felt better, or I remember feeling better. And then so we bring that in as, oh, that must be the solution. Well, no, maybe something else happened in conjunction with that, and that's really when you started feeling better, but you give the association back to the food. Let's break that away. Let's break that association from the food away and say no, what's in my way is that turning to food is something that's a barrier, and I now have to make a plan to go after it. I always like to know, the fourth question is what's in your way? And what's the hardest thing you've ever had to do in your life? Sorry. And when we start talking about the hardest thing you've ever had to do in your life, that's where you really opened up in your email. Your first 3 questions were pretty nice answers, but they were sentences or 2. And then you dug into what's the hardest thing I've had to do in my life. What I want you to do is as you reread or re-listen to what we just talked about, during the hardest periods of your life, you made goal. Back in June of 1998, with everything else going on in your life and the miscarriage and the second miscarriage, you made goal. Having the surgery, you made goal. So you have proven to yourself, which is why I think you believe in yourself so strongly, you have proven to yourself that as adversity comes to you, you have the strength internally to overcome it. That's the power of this 4th question is what's the hardest thing you've ever had to do? Will tracking Snickers bar or having chicken for dinner, again, will that be harder than what you've already gone through? Usually the answer is no. And so you rely on the opportunity for you to say, hey, I can do this. I have strength because I've lived through that already. And if I can live through that, I can live through anything. And then last question, certainly always, is who is responsible for your success? As much as we would love to share the responsibility here, as much as we would love to pass the responsibility on, the truth is you have to take ownership. You have to take responsibility. And by you writing those words, I am, that tells me all I need to know. You have a plan. You have the strength. You have the motivation. You have the belief in yourself. And you now know that you are capable and willing and responsible to do it. So thanks for your amazing email. Thanks for the courage it takes to write that in. And I hope it was helpful for you as well. And if you want to shoot an email back to the production team, they'll get it to me. But truly, thank you for sharing every aspect of your journey with us.
A lot of chatter from our wingmen about stress eaters versus stress non-eaters, which kind of reminds me of our household. You are a stress eater, and I know you don't mind me sharing that because I'm sure your wingmen already know that. I am a stress non-eater. When I am stressed, I do not eat without even realizing I'm doing it.
Yep.
So it's kind of an interesting situation in our house when we're going through something particularly difficult. I'm always saying to him, stop snacking, you're not hungry. And he's always saying to me, why haven't you eaten in 3 days? It's very interesting how people handle that very differently.
Yep. No, absolutely. And so, and it's one of those things that, again, it's a little bit learned behavior where you finally say, at some point, there was a point in my life, apparently, that I became really stressed and I thought food was going to solve it. And what happened is food didn't really solve it. And so, but I kind of make that association that if I overeat, then I'll feel better. And I can promise you it never has happened. And that's just not how it works. And so I'll go through a bag of whatever instantly and go, okay, well, now I'm still stressed and my stomach hurts. That's great. That didn't help me a bit. So,
right.
Yep.
Anonymous, whoever you are, I hope you're listening. I saw this after reading your email, this quote that just made me think of you. The best versions of ourselves don't come out when everything is going amazing. The best versions of ourselves come out in the midst of trial because that's when we grow. That's when we show our substance. You have been through some amazingly difficult things and have shown that you can persevere through it because it was important to you. And I know that you will experience the same thing on this journey as well. You've proven that you can do it. You've proven that when you put your mind to something, you can make it happen. A couple of people have suggested revisiting the 5 questions. Even once they've answered them, it's kind of like homework. You do it, you put it away, you don't think about it again. And the important thing for a lot of people on this journey is to go back every once in a while and remind themselves. Because even though you wrote it out and you believed it and you felt it 100% when you wrote it, 3 days later, something happened, life got crazy, and now you've forgotten. Lee even mentioned that he has his 5 questions taped right on the door so he can see his goals every time he goes in and out the door. Whatever works for you to keep reminding yourself every day what your goal was, because sometimes you need that visual reminder because things are crazy around you and you have a million other things going on in your head. So I think that's important to not just write those and be done like a homework assignment, but to keep revisiting them as you need them.
Well, and that certainly was the intent, right? The intent is you write down these 5 questions and then you read it every single morning and you allow that to be your battle cry and your motivation to say, I can do this. And I get asked from time to time, where do I find the 5 questions? And go to fatdag.com, subscribe to the newsletter. If you're a new subscriber to the newsletter, you're going to get the workbook come to you directly. The 5 questions are in there. And I really want you to put pen to paper, write it down and really dig into your brain. Something happens when you put pen to paper creatively your brain starts thinking a little differently than walking and typing or sitting at your computer and typing. So take some time to write them down. And then, it's not meant to be shared. You certainly can email and share it with me, but it's really meant as an exercise for you to dig into yourself and then reread it often until all of a sudden, suddenly those things, maybe they're not true, or maybe you've checked them off or accomplished them. So
a lot of people are saying they want to go back in and redo the questions now.
Yep.
You do them, and then maybe a month or two later, your focus has shifted, or your hardest thing in life may be something different now, and you want to pull the strength from that. So I think it's important to keep revisiting that.
Yep, absolutely. So Anonymous, again, thank you for writing in. And so, we know the internet is a really big place at times, and it feels like sometimes you're all alone, and that's why I built these communities for us to interact in. And so if you've written into the show, you will be invited into our private Slack community for one, but take it a step further and really dig into the Discord chats that we do every Monday night. And of course, we're stepping up more often and doing nightly check-ins just to make sure that you always have somebody to reach out to. And so that Discord chat becomes it's an opportunity for those in the Patreon community. And I really am grateful for every single one of them, because that's the financial backing, that the bulk of it that really keeps this show going. So join us in that group. You can get to the Patreon community by going to, you can get to the Discord community by going to fatdag.com, click on the Become a Patron link, and join us as well. So thanks for all you supporting the show and keeping it going. Appreciate that. This next email comes in from Mike. Mike writes in, he says, "Hey, dear Fat Dag, I'm writing this to thank you for your podcast. My wife, Dina, introduced me to your show. I was at your retirement ceremony and the party afterwards. Thank you so much for your service. My wife, as you know, has reclaimed her health by losing 150 pounds and then some. In January 2018, I decided to enlist her help to lose weight. I was 270 pounds. I had high blood pressure. I tired easily. With her coaching, I started tracking points. I learned WhysAdvice, and the weight came off steadily. Over the last year and a half, I've lost 62 pounds, gotten off my blood pressure medication that I've been taking for 6 years. I also got a clean bill of health at my annual checkup. My labs are excellent. This has become a lifestyle for my family and me. Our 3 sons have had impressive weight losses with WW as well. I've learned that even when I get off track and gain a little, I've climbed back to as high as 215 to refocus, because every day is a new day. Thank you for your encouraging words and reading emails from real people who are trying to live healthy. Keep up the great work, Mike, also known as Dina's husband." Mike, thanks for writing in. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you. I've met you a couple times, and you're an amazing dude, and your entire family is amazing. So I want to focus on you, and I love how you wrote in. The first piece I'll do is I'll certainly give a shout out to your lovely wife. 150 pounds, incredible. And so what happened is I use this term often, #BeThePrize, right? I get a lot of people ask me, hey, how do I get my husband to join me? How do I get my wife to join me on this journey? And I can tell you the last thing you can do is say, hey, honey, you should lose weight. Doesn't go over well. I don't care how you have that conversation. If you want to live, especially now when we're living under quarantine, probably not the best opportunity for you to say that to your significant other. So what the best thing you can do is exactly what Dina did. And she said, hey, I'm going to live happy and healthy. I'm going to make the right choices. And through osmosis, the rest of the family is going to pick up those signals and cues. And Mike, that's exactly what happened to you, is that you started seeing her new energy, her new life. And you said, hey, I want a piece of that. And I want to enjoy that lifestyle that she has and the energy that she has. And slowly, without her probably having to ask you, you said, hey, I want to learn to do this. And so now it's even translated over to your 3 sons as well, which is absolutely incredible. Your family should be incredibly proud of yourself. But with all that said, this does not happen unless you finally do the work required. And that's what you've done. And that's the piece that I want to focus on, is that what you've done, Mike, 62 pounds, incredible work. You can't do that accidentally. You can't do that because someone asked you. You can't do that because someone even begs you. You can only do that because you've finally taken an interest in you and you said, I want to be different. Whatever that looks like, whatever that feels like, I'm willing now to make the change. 62 pounds, not accidental. Like I said, you had to really say, I'm doing it. And clearly you have. You're continuing to live your life as well, which is the amazing part of this journey. When we're blending an old lifestyle with a new lifestyle, what you've described as the scale climbs up and you kind of go up and down is you're balancing 3 boys, a wife and a family, and you're balancing all that in your life. And so at some point, what you had to do is you had to prioritize something other than your eating habits and your patterns. And so that's how that kind of circle kind of goes up and down. But you've never, ever, ever lost sight of the big picture. And the big picture is that you're capable of doing this. You want to do this. You clearly have the motivation and the power and the reason to do it. And now you have a family of cheerleaders in your own house that say, good job, Dad. Good job, Mike. So, dude, thanks for coming to my retirement ceremony. That was fun. That was a great day. I've seen you in the Ultimate more than once. So it's always kind of fun to hang out with you. When I was previewing the show and the opening line said my wife Dina, I'm like, oh yeah, it's Mike. So I was super duper excited. So Mike, keep up the great work. Thanks for all that you do and being a part of this.
Yeah, Mike and Dina, thank you for being a part of that big day this summer too. Retirement was a huge celebration for us, of course, for a lot of reasons. But one of the other days that I think was a pretty big celebration in our house that most people probably wouldn't think about was the same thing Mike was talking about. The day you officially got to say, I am done taking blood pressure medication. That was a huge deal in our house. Because we have great insurance, the cost of it wasn't so much an issue for us, but just you knowing every day that you had to get up and take that. Yep. And that you had to take it until you could lose the weight. And so losing the weight, that was kind of one of your biggest rewards in all this, was that you finally got to stop taking those pills that you gagged down every morning.
Yeah, I remember taking the remainder of what I had of the pills, and I remember putting them in the toilet and flushing them down the toilet. And I remember getting a lot of flack from the internet saying, poor fish, right? You're killing the fish and whatever. I don't know the history behind that, but it was so powerful for me to say, yeah, I am now living my life healthy as I can be. And so, yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up.
And Dina's here, by the way.
Of course.
She's watching, yes. I assume Mike is sitting next to her, hopefully. But, you mentioned something important, as did he, that having family support is so huge on this journey. But that support can look different on different days. And I think people forget that. When you were first starting your journey, the support you needed at that time was you needed to eat breakfast and lunch and then text me midday and say, I have this many points left. What can we have for dinner? As the journey went on, some days it was, I need everything in the pantry to be labeled. Everything was in individual servings with numbers written on it. Anybody who came to our house and was not familiar with WW must have been wondering what on earth we were doing, because there was little Ziploc baggies with a 5 or a 3 or a 2 everywhere in our pantry. Our poor daughter, every lunch she brought to school had baggies with numbers on it. They were probably all wondering what on earth we were doing. But at that point in your journey, that's what you needed, so that when you wanted to snack, you could, but you could quickly be like, okay, I can have a 3 or a 4-point snack. You open the cabinet, you knew exactly what you could grab. Then there were days in your journey where I'd see you grab something and I'd be like, well, how many points do you have left? And you'd be like, I need to eat these, walk away.
Knock it off.
And I had to be okay with that and know when not to push. And I think it's just like, you talk about the person who's losing the weight on the journey, how some days it's just all about balance. And the same thing as somebody who's trying to support someone who's losing weight. It's all about balance. I was not there to be your police officer and watch everything you were doing. I'm not your trainer. I'm not your doctor. I'm just someone who's trying to help. And I think we tend to go overboard as spouses sometimes because we want to see you reach your goal. But like you said, you're the one who has to do it. We can be there to support when you're ready and in the way that you need us to.
Right. And one of the things that was very instrumental is probably similar to what Mike experienced, is that my family lived a healthy, happy lifestyle. And so I was the only one who wasn't. So it was, I would watch from cues of things that you were doing and that Megan was doing that made me go, okay, the funny story I always love to tell is Megan coming home from track practice, after running all afternoon going, man, I'm hungry, and opening the fridge and pulling out a green pepper and cutting it up. And my mind went just blown. Like, why on earth would you crave a green pepper after running? And I watch her do that. And my brain starts thinking, okay, well, that does make sense, and so that's the type of stuff. So as Mike lives in his household, he started watching Dina do amazing things and feeling better. You just pick up on those subtle cues. So if your family isn't in that style, you have to be the one to start that change. Mm-hmm. And so Mike had the opportunity. I had the opportunity as well. But for those of you who may not have the opportunity, it's time for you to be the opportunity. And Mike, I did notice Mike just said
is here, yes.
Yeah, he's joining us on Facebook as well.
He is. I mean, I've been torturing you all week. We bought a tiny bag of peanut butter M&Ms on Saturday, and I put it in a little Rubbermaid container, and I've been eating like 2 a day all week. And the other day, you were just about ready to open that container and finish it because it was driving you crazy that I was eating 2 or 3 M&Ms a day and leaving the container on the counter instead of just finishing the whole bag at once.
Yeah, I don't know where the container is at this point. If you still have it, we need to know when I get home. But Mike says the first memory he had of listening to Dina was hearing me say, when you're out of points, stop eating points. And so really what that means, and it's kind of when we said in his email, WhysAdvice is the hashtag. It's the acronym. When you're out of points, stop eating points. We pronounce it WhysAdvice. So that's kind of our battle cry to say, hey, that's how this is going to get done. At some point, you're going to have to make the hard decision, say, hey, I'm out of food at this point for the day. It's okay. Go to bed. You're going to be okay. Wake up the next morning, start over, and do your best. Anything else, Janine?
No, I think that was it.
All right. So, hey, as we transition, a lot of workshops are closed, that. And one of the things, the questions I've been getting a lot is, hey, how am I going to weigh in during these next 3 or 4 weeks? And I just don't know. And so that's where my friends at Withings really come in. The beautiful thing about what they've done is their scale connects to your phone automatically. So all you have to do is hop on it. You don't even have to look at it. The data goes directly into your phone for you. And then, because the first time you do this, we know there's going to be a data discrepancy from what you're used to seeing at your normal weigh-in to now what you're going to see at home. So the first time it might be nice just to not even look at it, but still have it recorded. The second time, maybe then you can start watching the numbers tick down. And then when you get back to your workshop, that data will certainly balance itself out. But the cool thing is having that data directly go into your phone is incredibly valuable. So I encourage you to go to fatdag.com, click on the Withings logo. You can certainly also go to dag.fyi/Withings20. You can use the promo code DAG20. That'll save you 20% off of a $100 purchase. It makes the scale truly affordable. I like the Body Plus, so go ahead and check it out. That's the one I use every single day. If you're daring, you can have it set up to Twitter, and you can hop on the scale, and the whole world will know. Mine is currently disabled from that feature, but because I'm working, but certainly that's a feature that you can have. So again, dag.fyi/Withings20. Enter promo code DAG20 at the checkout. The last email from this show comes in, again, anonymously. It says, Mike, cheers. I'm a relatively new listener, but a longtime follower on Connect. As an online-only member, I have pursued Connect and several Facebook groups to gain inspiration and connect to individuals that have similar goals and struggles as myself. I've never written into your show, and I almost never post on social media, including Connect. And in fact, I'm so private, I would love to remain anonymous if, in fact, you even choose to read my email on the air. But here's a little about me. I started WW several years ago, probably close to 5, back when it was called Weight Watchers, the good old days of Smart Points. And as an almost 40-year-old female, my weight has fluctuated my entire adult life. And even in high school, I had to work very hard to stay slim. Fitting in with the popular gang and gaining attention from the bad boys or popular athletes was a top priority for me, as I really did not have my head in the right place back then. I vividly remember eating a peach or nectarine for lunch in high school and nothing else. I literally starved myself skinny. The same continued through college at the University of Florida, where I ate very little, drank lots of alcohol, and ran stadiums until the cows came home, all in the name of fitting into and achieving some image that I found ideal. How naive was I? After college, I married a bad boy and was ridiculed and emotionally abused, all with regards to my weight and chub, as he would call it, for 7 years before getting the confidence to say enough is enough and leave. I have many regrets, but through it all, I was blessed to have my one and only child, an amazing daughter who hung the moon in my eyes. After my divorce, my weight continued to go up and down as much as 50 pounds. It seemed like I was always trying to lose the same weight over and over. As a stressed and emotional eater, the phases of life have been challenging. I went from being an abused wife to a single mom to a school teacher, academic coach, assistant principal, and for the last 2 years, a principal of a wonderful, albeit very needy, school. I also found love again, and I've been remarried for almost 7 years. While my now husband is 1,000% supportive and loves me at any size, he's seen me at 182 all the way down to 132. I can't seem to shake this cycle of losing and gaining over and over again. I struggle every single day with stress, emotional eating, and boredom eating. I wish I could figure this out, hence why I need so much encouragement and support. I'm currently 157 pounds or 22 pounds away from my personal goal weight of 135. Sometimes I think that perhaps I'm fine where I am and that 135 is too hard to maintain, but I know that is fear, laziness, and a lack of dedication kicking in. I know motivation takes many vacations, but I wonder why I lack it almost all the time lately. Today is day 4 of being completely back on track, and I feel proud, excited, and strong. I'm out for a brisk walk right now as I type this to you. I would love your advice as to how I can break the cycle and what to do when motivation takes a holiday. I enjoy listening to your podcast, and I find your advice and guidance to be spot on. So what do you have for me? Thanks for taking the time to read this very wordy email. Sincerely, stressed out mom and principal in Florida. Well, stressed out mom and principal, here's what I know about stress, and here's what I know about our understanding of our situation. When you wrote this email, your school was probably open. And here we are now, I don't know if your school is open or closed, but many schools across the nation are closing. And as a principal, having to be the one to kind of take that burden, I bet you would rather go back to the stress you had a week ago than the stress you're probably experiencing now. So in that moment when you said, okay, everything's coming at me a million miles an hour, we didn't even predict that maybe it's going to come at you even quicker. And so we want to get in the moments that we're in and say, okay, what can I do now? What can I do in the exact moment that I'm in right now? Because that's truly all we ever really can control. You're doing a great job of finding Connect and finding the Facebook groups to use that inspiration. And that's where we say we truly know that this journey is better together. The more people that you can find and follow to see that what you're trying to do is possible, despite all of the challenges that go on there are people who are still making it and finding success. And by watching them, you become encouraged to say, well, if they can do it, well, certainly I can do it. And sometimes we see other people write in and we say, well, that's not my story. Mine is way different, and I don't want that one. So I'll just stay in my little life. But if they can do that with all this going on, well, then certainly I can do that. And so everyone has to work on something. And so when we go through this part and we say, I can do this and I have to work to stay slim, you think about there are people all over the planet working to stay active. There are people working to stay engaged. And whatever's going on, we all have something that we have to work on. So your opportunity now to say, okay, I'm going to work on myself becomes the priority. And that's really what you've proven to yourself you already can do. By you taking care of your life and saying to the bad boy that you found the first go around, and you say, I no longer have to accept that. That's incredible strength right there. And that's incredible courage for you to finally recognize that, okay, I need to do something different because something different is how this whole thing is going to change for me. So I love you for taking that step and taking your amazing daughter into a scenario where now you can control the part of it that really matters. And you've getting rid of the pieces that were negative and say, it doesn't have to be this way. Through all that, you found a 50-pound weight loss. And so again, not accidental. You've done this deliberately. So through all the challenges that come at you, you've adjusted, you've refocused, and you said, okay, what is the priority at the moment? And you've found a way to continue to do that. So keep getting your dedication. You have it. You keep getting your excitement, your passion for doing this because you clearly have what it takes to do it. I want to ask you a question, and it's kind of somewhat rhetorical because you're not here, but I had an opportunity, an amazing opportunity to chat with a gal one day, and I forget the exact numbers, so I'll kind of paraphrase, but she said to me one day, she said, hey Mike, I really want to get down to 135, let's just say. And I said, okay, well, why 135? She goes, well, that's the weight from when I was in high school or whatever. That's the number I remember. And I said, okay, well, if I could guarantee you that we can do this, but really I only have the capability of guaranteeing you down to 136, would that be acceptable? And of course, she looked at me, she smiled, she said, well, yeah, of course, that would be fine. And I said, well, would 137 be okay? She said, well, yeah. I'm like, well, where does that number go? And so why does 135 come up? So in your own head, you probably have a lot of that going on as well, where you have this number in your head that you're fixated on. What I want you to fixate on is how you feel, how you're raising your amazing daughter, how you're taking care of the amazing kids in your school, and really start dialing into the feeling side of it. And you can reach goal long before the scale ever knows or cares. And so that's the internal feeling that I want you to work after. And so not necessarily 135 per se, but give yourself some grace again to say, it's not laziness, it's not lack of dedication. It may be a lack of you chasing the right thing, and the right thing now is for you to chase what you feel like and how you kind of interact with the people around you and what the quality of your life is. The quality of your life can be amazing at 135. It can be amazing at 137. The quality of your life can be amazing at 40. Settle into a routine where you're happy, comfortable, and you say, okay, I can do this. So that's what I picked up. Janine, what did you find as well as an educator?
I can totally relate to the stress right now. One of the things that's really resonating with our listeners right now is the part where she said motivation keeps taking a holiday. A lot of our listeners can relate to that. Several of them have said something like, yeah, mine's been on vacation for a while. And I think the important thing to remember is that you're never going to get to a point in your life where you are always 100% motivated. You're just not. You're going to have days where you're not. So the more important thing over motivation is being disciplined. Having those routines like you talk about, drive to the gym, but don't go in. The next day, drive to the gym and then do this. And just building habits and really disciplining yourself so that you're used to things going a certain way. Build those habits now, so on the days when you're not motivated, you just sort of do them without even thinking, like you're on autopilot. We drive to work every day, not sure how we got there, and suddenly we're there. Yep. Same thing with the gym, same thing with your eating. If it becomes a part of your daily routine and a habit, even on those days when you don't have that motivation, you will still have the discipline to do what you know you want to do.
Yep, and that's exactly what we're working on, is the building your new lifestyle so it becomes on autopilot, and it just becomes your reaction. And your reaction is when everything goes crazy, boom, you go into your default mode, and if your default mode supports a healthy lifestyle, then boom, you're going to be so much better off. So you're right, Janine. It's more discipline than it is you saying laziness or fear. Those are byproducts of what you're working on. But you say, okay, make a plan. Make an action plan of what, think about, you're a principal of a school with kids who are very needy, as you put. So I think I understand that as probably a special needs kind of school. And so what an amazing heart you have for that. And so the fact that those kids are there being able to rely on you, you could not do that without a plan. So in order for you to have gotten as far as you did in that process to become the principal, someone looked at you and said, this person has it figured out. This person can make a plan and execute it. It's not much different here. You just now, the subject and the pupil becomes you.
Absolutely. And I think giving yourself grace, we talk about that a lot, but we see people who have great progress, lose 50 pounds, 40 pounds, whatever it may be, gain back 2, and suddenly they're done. Yep. They've failed, and you haven't failed. You've still lost all of that weight. A tiny step back doesn't prevent you from moving forward. It
actually gives you the power to continue on if you accept it right and say, okay, this is part of the journey. I'm going to go ahead and make sure from this point forward, I accept that as that this is going to happen, and then I just stay prioritized and focused on the pieces that truly matter. So
absolutely,
yeah. So that's where we're at, and so when you get to that point in your journey, you have the opportunity to celebrate, right? And so you can celebrate, you don't have to celebrate what the scale is, you can celebrate how you feel, you can celebrate, how you just internally are going about life. Certainly we want to hear about it in the Book of Awesome, #BookOfAwesome. Put that all over social. When I see them, I'll kind of retake some photos and send them back out to you to let you know it's been entered in. But celebrating is a big part of this journey. You have to every single step of the way. And then more importantly now, as we enter this completely uncertain time, you have to find the things that are going right in your life to celebrate. I want to know what it is that you're celebrating. Let's share it on the air. Go to fatdag.com, click on the Wise Advice podcast link, send in your celebrations, your comments, your questions. We'll work them in as part of the show. We truly want you to email in your celebrations to onair@fatdag.com because we want you to be proud of what you're doing. We want you to share it with our community. We want you to recognize it in your own words that what you are doing is incredible work. It's an honor to be a part of this journey with you, but that is going to do it for this time. Remember, losing weight and getting healthy has nothing to do with luck. You have to remain disciplined and focused. Set your sights on your goal and go after it. From Jacob in the booth, Lisa and Heather, my production team, my co-host Janine, we wish you good focus.